Good morning, Wicked Edge Expert Corner Group. This is Mark, and I want to revisit Tom Morgan's post from yesterday and talk to some members. What Trent said is 100% correct. Tom said with scrubbing, up and down scrubbing, and I am going to make a video on sharpening strokes, but I've been bothered by this the whole night, so I want to discuss this. Up and down scrubbing, he made a burr and he set that burr. And then from then on, Tom said he used edge leading strokes. That means the stones are leading down against the edge, coming down against the edge. So as Devin said, that should diffuse or remove the burr because you're coming down and on. And Tom does that all the way through to the end. And yes, he should have a sharp edge, a keen edge, a sharp edge, and there should be no burr if it's done correctly. Now, the thing that I went into with that video that I made, that Tom didn't go into that detail that I don't know, and I don't want to say that he's not doing something or say he is doing something or criticize, but without knowing the details of whether Tom is using diamond stones or Tom is using other mixed mediums, wet stones, whether he is setting the bevel angle with the cube with each and every grit. These things contribute to your edge. Now, if you're working with Wicked Edge diamond stones, the stones can be used one to the next, to the next, to the next. If you set your angle at the beginning with the cube, set your 100 grit stone, and you lock everything up and you use just the Wicked Edge diamond stones, they are consistent and close enough in thicknesses from the coarsest grits to the finest grits. As the grits get finer, the diamonds get finer, so the layers may be less to achieve the plating, so it may, in fact, if you measure it with the caliper, be a little narrower than the 100 grit. But it's parallel. So by measuring the angle with each grit, I take care of that consideration. Whether that's necessary or not, I don't think so. I think what's necessary is the consistency. I think that if you use a Wicked Edge stone and you set your angle with the 100 grit and you follow each and every, as long as everything stays tight and locked into place, the knife position doesn't change, you work each stone sequentially the same way, you'll have fantastic results once you're working with broken in stones and you know what you're doing. The conversation about edge leading, edge trailing, this is getting into trying to do it better. And what Tom and I have been bantering back and forth for years about is which is the way to do it better. And I'm chasing my way and he's doing his way, and I don't know exactly the details, so I don't want to criticize. But back to it, if you start with your first grit, say 100 grit, and you develop a burr by scrubbing up and down, the stone starts down below the knife edge and then goes above the knife edge and back down below while it's in contact. It never leaves contact. It is scrubbing and you move back and forth against the edge. That scrubbing stroke sets that angle along the edge at the angle that we are working at, that we set with our cubes. And that is the first one with the coarsest stone that we set, and we get it set on both sides, and we draw our burr then. This is what Tom is is saying. He draws his burr then, and then with each sequential grit, he's only doing starting above the edge and coming down and on. He's leading the stone against the edge, coming down and on. Everything else he does, his complete repertoire of stones is only edge leading from what I'm reading. Alternating sides, so there should be no burr. Now, my understanding is that edge is at the same angle that an edge would be if you were using a edge trailing stroke, which is when you start all the way down at the bottom of the edge, and then you, with it in contact, you go up and off the edge everywhere you're working. You make contact at the beginning and up and off the edge. And that's an edge trailing stroke. That's also called a lapping stroke because that's the same stroke you use for lapping. But the process is totally different. Lapping is an edge trailing stroke. Okay, so the edge trailing stroke, the angle is set the same as the edge leading stroke, but the abrasives coming down on the apex are pulling the steel down off of the shoulder, whereas the edge trailing is starting at the shoulder and pushing the steel off of the edge where it can either grow long or flop over. And that's the burr, is what we feel on our edge with our fingers, the flop over from the edge trailing strokes, pushing the steel from the edge shoulder up off the apex. And if it's done by someone who sharpens well, that wired edge can be very acute, and it can be very tall, and I don't know how strong, but it can impart a more characteristic sharpness to that knife than it would have if you were testing it against the edge leading stroke, where you don't develop that wired edge. So that is the difference between the edge leading and the edge trailing. So the way Tom describes it, that he's always down and on edge trailing. And I think that he's going to have a knife that's very sharp with a lot of character that he can add with his down and on edge leading strokes. And what Trent said is correct, that is the beauty of Wicked Edge. But the beauty of Wicked Edge is it's just a bench vise that lets us do anything that we can do within, you know, however we can control it and put it together. We can use those stone strokes. Just like you can move your knife against a belt to control it, to do whatever. Everything is fixed here. We only can control it by this, by the up and off, which is edge trailing, the down and on, which is edge leading, and then there's the scrubbing, which is when you're going above and below the edge while in contact. And you can scrub in a round and round, and you can scrub horizontally or longitudinally along the edge. It's up to you to figure out what you want to do or what works for you or what gives you the results, because there's all kinds of knives. Some knives are made out of band steel that the grain runs this way, and they behave a whole lot differently sharpening than the knives that the grain runs this way, which is predominantly what knives I'm sharpening. Those tend to be the better knives. So yes, what Trent said, what I said went off on another tangent, because I start with the scrubbing after I set the angle with each and every grit, because I want to refine that bevel scratch pattern with the scrubbing. And then I finish that with the down and on edge leading just like Tom does. Now, Tom didn't say whether he added the scrubbing in between. He said from what he wrote that he only does the down and on, edge leading down and on. So that's a matter of choice. Whether one is better than the other, I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm doing what I'm doing and getting very sharp knives and enjoying the results. But I have to do it the way I have to do it in order to make sense of it. If I just start doing haphazardly different ways, I'll have a sharp knife. Because once you clamp your knife in the wicked edge and you get it, you know what you're doing. It's anything that you do is going to make that apex. It's just what you do and how you do it and how you choose to put it together that we learn that gives us even better results. And that's what I'm striving for. I know how to make a knife very, very sharp with a wicked edge. I'm trying to control the sharpness and give it the character that I'm looking for. Anyway, I hope that I spoke to Trent and to Devin. I don't know you, Devin. Nice to see you. And thanks for contributing.